Roll call.
Mark Eastman,
Here.
Kathy Downs,
Here.
Jim Morrison,
Here.
Jim Boothby,
Here.
Meg Hay,
Here.
Ron Russell,
Here.
Dave Peterson,
Here.
Larry Wall,
Here.
and Joe DeVanzo.
Here.
John Paul Lalonde and Steve Bishop both reached out that they weren't able to make it.
And item 2, approve minutes from April and July of 2022.
Make a motion, we approve them.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Review of draft facade grants.
So, I would ask you if you remember when we started this, but it was pre-COVID. So, for some of y'all are new to the board, and this came about when the whole Oceans TIF back in 2019, the board had asked me to come up with a facade grant. And we had just finished draft number 2, and then the world stopped. And as we know, Whole Oceans hasn't started yet, so I approached Sue. This was going to be $100,000 for 3 years, but because we don't have the TIF, I asked Sue if we could start this way with a 1 year, $100,000, and see where we can go from there. She said we can bring it here and then bring it to the council and see what the council's pleasure is. So that is one change. Obviously, dates have changed from the last one. I added the word siding in the first paragraph to include siding, painting, shingling, windows, doors, signage, awnings, and ADA improvements. And I also added residential, which wasn't in there first time. And the reason behind that, and again, the committee can make any changes it wishes, but the reason behind that is there are a lot of businesses now that are opening up on the other side of the downtown. Bucksport Nutrition just opened last week. Huckleberry's relocated down that section. Both Fabrics is down there. Seaboard, there's really no parking lots besides Seaboard, so that was one of the reasons for that change, to make that walk a little more appealing and looking better. So please fire away with any comments, suggestions.
So, Rich, I mean, as far as the town will fund half the expenses up to $10,000, that means somebody has to spend 20 or just 10?
They have to spend 10, and
To
their
get
project
10.
would be to get 10, correct. So if they spend 7,000, they could get up to 7,000.
Okay.
So they really spend 20, like
Right.
Mark
That-
said.
yeah, that's-
Yeah, they spend up to 20, we reimburse 10.
Right.
Yep. But they could spend 10 and you'd still reimburse 10.
Yeah.
No, that's not what this says.
No.
Well, that's what I want to make sure.
Oh, sorry, yes. Did I say, it should be, so if they spend, if it's a $20,000 project, the town would pay up to 10,000 of that project.
Right.
Okay.
So
It's
if
a match.
it's a $10,000 project, the town will pay 5,000.
Okay.
Is there a ceiling on this? How many grants we can give out? Or
I put up to 100,000, Jim. That's what we had originally, and just knowing what's in the former mill TIF, which isn't much, and what is used to fund the community agencies in town.
so essentially, if they max out, we can allow 10.
That's correct. Yes.
And we're gonna remain with that, or are we gonna break that ceiling at some point? Do you know?
I mean, I would think once Whole Oceans comes forward and there's TIF revenue coming in, we'd look at it, wouldn't you?
We would that's the plan. When we were basing this off of the Whole Oceans plan, it was going to be 100,000 for 3 years, up to 300,000 total. And for example, if Meg wanted to apply 3 consecutive years for the 10,000, we had said at that point in draft 2 that we would allow someone to do that if they wanted to make different improvements each year to get them to the end. But under this, that provision's not there because I'm going under the assumption that we're only going to be a 1 year, unless the council says, hey, this has really had a good change.
So at this point, where is this money coming from?
It could either come out of 1 or 2 places undesignated, or there's still a little over 200,000 in the mill TIF. That would, I believe, be up to the council's discretion or Sue's recommendation to the council.
So just to be clear, say it was a $100,000 project, could they apply for 10,000?
If it's a $100,000 project, they can apply for 10 and pay the other 90, yes.
And then the other thing is, there's no guarantee any of these would not necessitate a reevaluation, right?
You mean a tax assessment?
Yeah.
Good question.
Fair question, I can ask the assessor.
Maybe put new, I guess the
I
question is.
mean,
put new-
I think the things you listed probably do not. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
I wouldn't think so. I'm usually
Siding
you add
could-
a
Siding could increase, things that make it look more eye appealing.
But I don't know that that translates right into assessed value or not, because the expectation is you've got a decent outside.
The assessor has seen this, and when we spoke about it, it wasn't something she brought up that, hey, they're getting this grant, I'm gonna go out there the next day once it's done and go jack up their evaluation. It's not what she said, and I'm not saying that's
No.
what you're asking, but in the conversation I had with her, she liked the wording of it, and did not suggest that she would go out and do a reval.
Two questions, okay?
Go ahead, Joe.
One, on the evaluation, when I had taken the course, it could, depending on what's being placed in, if they can, because I know I put a deck in, they came and they revalued my house. So it may or may not, I don't know if it will. But my main point would be, do we have any say on since it's going to be on Main Street, on the eye appeal of what they're going to be choosing? It should be some type of uniformity with other buildings in the area. We want to project a certain image for the town. So do we want to say, yes, you can do that, but what colors are going to be used, what type of material, what type of construction, what's the design afterwards, what would it look like? So there's some type of uniform appeal to the town. If you want to have an image, a uniform image for the town. I was just wondering.
The closest I have to what you're asking is in paragraph 4 that starts complete information will be available on the town's website. The town's Community and Economic Development Committee will review all applications beginning with its October 2022 meeting and will determine what projects will be able to begin. So I guess that would be up to this committee once they have the plan, once they know what.
So if we don't like what they're going to do, we say that's the idea is okay, but the design doesn't fit in or whatever.
Yeah,
Seems like a slippery slope.
Slippery slope to me, too.
You think so?
Unless you stated it ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, it would need to be something that the town would have had to, I mean, because we couldn't say what I feel is uniform, it might not be what you feel is uniform.
Well, yeah, but we all have, okay, right, not to put on that.
It's okay. I mean,
I was just wondering on point on that. If it's,
I think it's hard, my guess is it would be hard to do something like that, to have design elements that they had to incorporate. I don't know of an example if you know.
I mean, do we want something tacky as opposed to something that if we're trying to say with a pearl of the penobscot,
Joe, define tacky for me, would you?
Okay, I just wanted to bring that up. I'm not looking to make an issue out of it.
It is a valid point. In Eastport, everything downtown, because everything downtown was part of a historic district. And so everything had to go before the Historical Review Board, that, when we had our facade grants, and that can become very interesting also. One person didn't want to go by the rules, and they did their own thing. Nothing ever happened. But everybody else went by the rules. I mean, it all looked nice in the end. But, I mean, I see where it's coming from.
I think my goal with it is if there's a building that maybe paint's shaling away, coming away, and that person wants to maybe change to a vinyl siding. I mean, I guess maybe you could say we don't want you to do. I don't like multicolor, like top pot pink, bottom half green, or something like that.
I don't see us as really getting involved with it. If it's an improvement, it's an improvement. I think the most important thing is, have you felt the demand? You're putting this in for a reason. Have you felt that people are saying to you, hey, can we get this program rolling? And what kind of demand are you hearing for this program? And if you are hearing the demand, does that mean then we should have some type of priority list or hear them before we approve them? Just in case. I just don't know what the demand is.
Yes, so when we started this in 2020, when we were looking at this in 2020, Bolt Fabric had moved out, and one of the concerns was how do we get people to continue to walk further down? And in the meantime, Andy Locker of Bookstacks took out a microloan to paint his building, which he could have easily done with a facade grant. But instead of waiting for whatever this date was going to happen, Andy took out a microloan, painted his building, called it a day. I know of 2 other people downtown who would be interested in this program. One would change the siding of their building so that it would look better. And the second one, I don't quite know what the plan is as of yet, but, so is it overwhelming people knocking on my door? No. This is me reintroducing something that we had started before, and I think especially with the opening of that new business of Bucksport Nutrition and Huckleberry is just moving down that end, now maybe the time to, let's promote downtown. If we can get something passed along the lines, let's put it in the paper, let's get some positive press in there, draw more people into the downtown area. And there was one other thing I did add, that I did not mention was preference given to properties along Main Street. But it is the whole downtown area.
I think there's a lot of opportunities for everybody. You could get an entrepreneurial contractor that could go in and talk to people and say, hey, did you know that I probably could maybe help you get a deal at half price for putting some new siding on your building or a paint job, or it might look good with some flower boxes. You know, there's all kinds of things other people in town can do. And then back to my first question, regardless of whether it will have somebody come knocking at your door about, hey, it looks a lot better, maybe it's worth more, it's going to make really the downtown have more real value, because in the end, it's $200,000 invested, and that'll have ramifications for neighbors and everybody.
I would agree.
In a good way.
Yeah, it might encourage people to open a business, you know.
I don't see how something like this is a lose if the town has the money and they need to come up with a program, and that's the way they can use it. I mean, TIFs are pretty specific, but you have to use them, right?
The whole Oceans TIF, we allocated $250,000 to $300,000 for this purpose, because this isn't like the state-run facade program, which is really under a microscope. Certain conditions that you have to meet, you have to get prices and people and their hours and all that good stuff. This would be town-run. This originally came from what other communities are doing who are doing it outside of state funding. Downtown Augusta is a historic site, so part of that came from there. We don't have to rush this through by any means. If the committee would like to put parameters or make sure it's something that you want, a lot of you are business owners in the downtown or live in the downtown area.
I think
I
it's
wish I'd known
sufficient.
about this a year ago. Yeah, because we spend a lot of money on the new front windows and my awning, a lot of money. I mean, this would have come in really handy.
Ask for a rebate.
So you're saying the September 1st is not written in stone?
No, this could easily be changed.
And it's got to go before the council anyway.
It's going to go before the council. There is a August 25th council meeting,
Yes.
so there's time. That's why the September 1st date, it gave it a week to settle, get it in the newspaper, so everyone had a fair shot at applying.
Go ahead, Larry.
Does one building equal one project?
I guess the question is, if Dick owns 6 different properties on Main Street, can Dick apply for 6 different properties on Main Street?
I mean, for sake of fairness, it's probably best, or we could put a parameter in per calendar year, or fiscal year, however you want to.
Yeah, but then what if you only have 4 people apply, and, you know, his 6 projects could get done in his buildings? They're separate buildings,
Fair question, yeah.
you know? I mean, I'm just saying, if 10 applications come in and we go over them, yes. If 15 applications come in, you go over them and decide. Maybe 2 or 3 get chosen or whatever. As long as it's limited to 10, which I assume, or up to 100,000,
Yeah, it could be more than 10.
utilize the 100,000 by however many applications come in. I don't think I would limit it just because one person
And
happens
those-
to own multiple buildings downtown. There's still a bunch of buildings downtown that might all need work.
And those improvements may not go the full 10,000.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I guess you can always put in there if you wanted to, you know, we'll approve you up to 10,000, you know, give us the list you want, and if there's extra money come if we're gonna end it in June and March, we can revisit your applications for the rest. That's what,
No, I think if I, not to disagree, I don't want to disagree. It's per project.
Right.
So as long as we're just doing per project and we keep it in that box.
Right, within the 100,000,
I don't
yeah.
like to start to
You
get
don't have to be
into
real wordy with it.
making changes here because we gotta get this to the council now. And so I think the way it's written currently meets the needs.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
the other thing, I think we discussed that, if I remember correctly, when this was a long time ago. Facade generally means facade.
Mm-hmm.
I think back then, we'd sort of come to the conclusion outside of the building. So.
should we name it something?
yeah, it
different?
says siding, painting, shingling, windows, doors, signage, awnings, and ADA
Right,
improvements.
but a lot of times facade, sometimes, I'd have to look it up actually and see, but it's sort of, is it the whole exterior, is it the front?
Well, yeah, the
Yeah.
front, I
mean,
think
it's sort
you'd
of things you
say.
have to think about. a little
Right,
bit.
right,
Well,
right.
and just shingle, is somebody get confused that with a roof? Or?
I think we discussed that before and kind of said not. Yeah, but that's the way I remember.
That's what I remember too, yeah.
So strike shingling?
Or do you
Or
mean
should not
cedar
include
shakes
those.
on it for a siding? Do you
I mean,
mean,
cedar shakes is one thing, but are we
That's what I'm saying.
Shingle
Which are
and
you-
roof isn't really like
Exactly.
adding to the facade.
so you have to just be more specific, I guess.
Could you
Cedar
say,
siding.
Yeah, or exterior siding, not roofing shingles, however you need to phrase that.
Well, he's already got siding.
Okay.
So instead of shingling, you could say cedar shake siding or something. It would have to not say shingling, so they'd think of it as a roof, as roofing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if you had a beautiful sidewall and your roof was
Mhm.
terrible, you know,
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
I'm in
right,
See, I'm in
yeah.
agreement that we leave it the way it is,
Yeah,
and we can all make decisions if we feel that something's in a gray area, you know,
Yeah.
and we want to talk about it, doesn't mean we can't.
Right, but it's better to do that ahead of time.
If we can, but we're not in a position to pick and choose everything
Right.
that's out there.
Would it be easier and less confusing if we strike the word facade and change that to exterior?
It would be. The facade by
If we're going-
definition means
The front.
the front, right.
front facing.
Mm-hmm.
So facade does mean the face of a building, especially the
Right.
principal front that looks
Right.
onto the
Yes.
street or open
Mhm.
space.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the technical, which is sort of what I think you're talking about. So facade.
That's the way Broadway and Bangor is set up that way. They just have to keep the
Front.
side that faces Broadway
Right.
has to be
Mhm.
kept up in historical.
Right, so it wasn't East
So do we
Bridgeton.
want to restrict it
I
just
sort
to a
of
side?
practice that at home, whatever's out back of the shed is out back of the shed.
So I guess we
wanna
have to
discourage
decide if
somebody
it's
using
facade
the
or
waterfront
exterior,
project.
right?
I think that'd be a good way to start. I agree with that.
You had two comments.
I had two.
I'm sorry.
Which one did you say, Rich?
Oh, Meg asked the question.
I said we have to decide whether we're going to use the
Right.
term facade or exterior.
And I pose a question, if you have somebody who's got a building on Main Street that has a waterfront exposure as well, and they want to do an upgrade that's going to enhance the waterfront.
It's going to make the
would that be
downtown
a
look better.
Right.
You could say a facade on the street or walkway.
Okay, that works.
or you could say exterior.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Larry, don't be so technical.
I'd be fine with exterior if that's what
Exterior is fine.
That's
yeah.
the world.
Anything that gets improvements going.
Right.
So then the last question I have, Rich, is, so, I don't remember it specifically, but has all the COVID relief money been earmarked?
I think the only thing that's been expended has been on first responders.
So
Yeah.
then my question there might be, say this did work and that everybody's pretty happy with it in town, is that, could that extension be a use of that? I know that was pretty specific, but it had to be used.
I don't recall. Do you do anything else to recall?
I don't think it would, well, they kind of made it at the end that there was no parameters, right?
Well, beautifying the Main Street really didn't fall in the categories that were acceptable.
I mean, I think we can move forward with this and then
Yeah, yeah.
approach that next year, but I don't have an answer for you. I don't know. So are we all fine with just the change of exterior versus facade? Any other changes that?
Do I need to make it more clear? Because I heard a few different people ask does 10,000 mean you're gonna pay for the whole thing? Do I need to make that more clear? Is that not clear enough?
We need 10,000 pay for the whole thing.
So,
It's a
so if
dollar
Mark,
per
if Mark
dollar.
wants to reside his building and it costs 10,000, the
Yeah.
town's not giving Mark 10,000.
No, it's giving him
The town's-
5.
Okay, is it clear enough in here?
Just say up to a $10,000 match.
I think you're very
That's what-
clear, the town will fund one half of the expenses up to $10,000.
Right.
Right.
But that's what it says, I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty clear, to me, anyway.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure.
No, it is.
Okay. So are those changes, are we comfortable with a motion to make a recommendation to ask the council to approve it?
Yes, someone would like to make that motion.
I'll make a
If
motion.
everybody-
If nobody wants to make it, I'll make it. To
Well-
accept the changes to the exterior and accept as written. And it's gonna go to the council once I get it up and read it, what you read. So I
Yeah,
make the
with those
motion.
changes to draft
Those
3,
changes and that
yes.
we're recommending the council.
On
support.
draft 3,
Yes.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so we have
Motion.
a motion.
I second.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? And item 4, review of submitted taglines. It's kind of been a
Okay.
B stretch.
Okay, so.
Do we have enough time?
Oh, plenty of time, because there was 5 submitted, and then I was asked to do a little more research on what the marketing committee had come up with, so I'll share those first, which I do not believe any of those were on the list.
Oh. Okay.
Your Way by the Bay, Opportunity by the Bay, Start by the Bay, Opportunity for Life, and Build It by the Bay. This is what came up in the marketing plan that suggested taglines. They suggest using anywhere between 3 and 5 words. What I got from the committee, I got 2 votes for Pearl of the Penobscot, 4 votes for keeping it the same, 1 vote for community opportunity, history community opportunity, 1 vote for HIP, but leave the word HIP out, so historic, innovative, progressive. 1 vote for charming, 1 vote a discovery by chance, a destination by choice, 1 vote an off-course discovery, 1 vote a charm destination, 1 vote gem at the river bend, 1 vote our charm welcomes yours, 1 vote Riverbend Haven, 1 vote don't tell anybody, 1 vote where a discovery becomes a destination. So 4 out of the 5 folks who submitted suggested keeping it the same.
Well, and that's how I felt.
I
As I
felt.
went through this whole list, the only thing that came to my mind as I was going through was, and maybe some in here, if I said to you, do you know what the WOW signal is? Jim, do you know what the WOW signal is? See, he doesn't know. Nobody knows. The WOW signal is that back in the 70s, the aliens, they had that one little piece where it was WOW, and it was written on there, okay? It doesn't really do much, but if we could find 3 letters that would stand for something, and come up with some type of saying, it'd be great, but I can't think of anything. And I went through several, and I just keep coming back to rich heritage, looking to the future.
You know, the state of Washington did something like that, so that they could make it a word. After $500,000, it failed miserably.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I failed trying to come up with
Yeah.
something.
What you could do, I'm not saying to do this, but it's saying what you, if you use the word pop, you could have Pearl of the Penobscot.
Yes,
Plus Port has pop, it's the Pearl of the Penobscot.
right. But does it
I'm not
have
saying
other
to do
meanings?
that, I'm just saying, going along with what you're saying.
Yeah. So unless somebody comes up with something that really grabs the committee, I really think we stay with what rich in heritage and
I'm
looking
fine
to the
with
future.
Yeah, according to the votes he got, I'd say it popped anyway. Rich in heritage, keeping the one we have.
Yeah.
I agree.
And as a reminder, that was 18 months of work back in 1990, so 25 years ago that happened. In 1997, it was a teacher at Bucksport High School and 3 students who did all that work. And I promised you a video, and I did not deliver. I will get a copy. The copy I had, I misplaced. I thought I put it somewhere, and I didn't. So I have a VHS copy that I didn't want to bring my reporter down. Sorry, project it.
think we can convert that, Rich.
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah, I'll look at it. I'm not sure I can make that.
91. Alan looking good.
Motion?
Yeah, they did for me last time. That's.
Should I do that?
Should we make a motion?
Yeah.
I think
I'd
so.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I make a motion that we keep the rich in heritage and look into the future for the tagline.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank God.
Glad to be done with that.
That was always.
People who won't be generous.
No, there's a lot of.
So, item 5 is new business. Does anybody have any new business they want to bring up? Dick, did you have something?
I just wanted to talk about, I had some friends come to town today. I got a half-hour notice that they were sailing in, which was really nice. Hadn't seen them in almost 30 years, so that was interesting. And I said, okay, yeah, let's go out to lunch. And of course, I wasn't thinking about
It'd be a Monday.
Bucksport. Yeah, Monday, the Bucksport. So I take a walk. I mean, I'm up here, down there, and finally we just got in the vehicle and went over to Just Barb's when I could have really gone down to Buckshot House of Pizza. But I was so disappointed downtown. You know, there's nothing. There's nothing. Monday and Tuesday, nothing.
The only place open on Main Street on Mondays is Port of Call.
Yes, your door was wide open, by the way.
Right, it's the only, it's true. We're the only place now that's open now that Pet Provisions is no longer open on Monday.
Yep.
On the downtown part.
I mean, it's just dead.
I don't think it's unique to here.
It's
a
not.
problem.
No.
It's everywhere.
Right. If I may,
Andy's closed?
if I may, I
Huh?
will say.
Andy's closed?
I don't know,
I'm
is
sorry.
she
No,
open?
it's okay.
She might be, but I'm not sure. If so, she and I are the only two. In the whole downtown.
No, it's okay, Larry. So, as you know, last month I brought up about the gasoline situation here in Bucksport. I'm happy to report that in my travels around, Bucksport gas station has been the lowest in the area. Now, I don't know if it had anything to do with us as a committee, but I'd like to think somebody heard something. And so it was nice to see the reaction over there, all of a sudden, down. So that's all I can say about that night. So the committee must have some clout.
Maybe they'll hear you in the restaurant bit.
I hope so. You know, it'd be nice if they got together and
I
they
know,
said,
it would be.
you know, hey, you open up on this Monday, I'll
Yeah.
open up on this Monday, and, you know, gee, if they could just coordinate
I know.
downtown.
I know.
It would be fabulous, because we got, every 10 days we have the American Cruise Line ship coming in, the American Constitution. Now, if they come in on a Monday and Tuesday, what kind of image are we sending to these folks? We work all this time to come up with rich and heritage looking to the future. Well, folks, we got to have places for these people to go. And Port of Call is right down here, okay? But now when they start walking and everything's closed, what do you think's going through their heads?
Exactly.
Sounds to me like it might be a good time to invite some food trucks. Yes.
That's not a bad idea. I don't know how to do that. You guys?
I do not know how to do that.
Believe me, I think we can figure it out.
I think we got to do
And we
something.
don't even have to use a rotary phone.
Yeah. When I first started coming up here, we did have a truck that was here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe's
Yeah,
Eats.
Joe's.
Yeah, Joe's, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know what we have to do. Maybe we as a committee can we get a grant? And we'll get our own truck.
In the shop, we have to tell people around here don't eat on a Monday
Oh, is that what it is?
and Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's my fault for not thinking about the Bucksport House of Pizza
To
because
be
I go there
fair,
often.
there are 6 options to eat in Bucksport on a Monday and Tuesday.
Where?
Where?
You have Bucksport House of
Bucksport
Pizza.
House of
These
Pizza.
Starting Crosby's, Carrier's, McDonald's, and Subway. I'll save the last 2 because I know they're fast
Yes,
food.
but Ming's you can't go in and sit down.
I understand that's correct, but we've got a lot of picnic tables on the waterfront.
That's
It's
true.
a
That's
great
true.
place
Could
to
have
eat.
done that, I suppose.
I was saying, I just went to Crosby's and I brought it over to the gazebo and had something to eat right before I came.
We do tell people about those
2 and a 4-year-old.
Curios and Crosby's and
Okay.
Bucksport House of Pizza. We
Yeah.
do. But when they,
It's true.
yeah, we do tell them about them,
It's
but
hard.
it's hard. It's,
I've talked to business owners before and asked the why. Why not on Monday? Monday's usually a prep day for the upcoming week. I will say there are some business owners who are saying that this has been their most successful year ever. In Bucksport. And their staff is tired, they're tired, and they need those days off. The restaurants, from all accounts of what I'm hearing, are doing extremely well this year. Every last one of them.
right.
It's not just here. It's in Ellsworth too.
Everywhere.
Yeah, it is definitely.
I mean, in Ellsworth, they're closed on Sundays.
For Main Street.
My
You
daughter-
said you had one staple on Main Street closed.
Yeah.
You know,
Finn's Pub closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
my daughter works, she manages the Union Lobster Pot in Ellsworth for Brian Langley. And they're crazy on Sundays
Oh, I bet.
because everything is closed.
Mm-hmm.
And then Finn's just closed down there
Yeah.
unexpectedly.
Maybe if we could develop something on Main Street called Picnic Mondays.
There you go. That works.
Yeah. That's a nifty idea.
We have a thing that we maybe could use that
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a great idea to have the restaurants coordinate with each other
Mm.
and have one open on Monday one week and,
Be nice if they did downtown.
you know,
for.
another
I
one.
suspect, though, that possibly the reason they picked Mondays is because with help hard to get, and if you have a Sunday, Monday off,
Mhm.
it makes more livable for restaurants.
I'm sure it
and people
does.
like that.
I'm sure it's a staffing issue. I mean, George was open
Every-
for decades prior to.
Right.
It's
But
just-
what if they like alternated and each one did one weekend, one Sunday, Monday, or something like that?
It's still trying to get the staff.
Yeah, you're right.
But you're
they
still
could
gonna
just
have to
move the
guarantee
staff
them
from one
to
restaurant
make
to
a
another
certain amount
when
of
they
money.
have Monday.
That's true.
You know, and it's just not them, it's the town itself, it's people who may be going out and spending their money on the weekend and Monday,
Yep.
being in the
Bring
weekend,
the
not spending
trucks.
anything.
All right.
Any other?
Can I
business?
ask two, I'm
Go ahead,
sorry,
Joe.
no.
Go ahead.
I didn't, no.
No, you're good.
Just two quick questions, because it was funny with the gas, because a month and a half ago, I was out in Millbridge, and gas was $4.92, and it was like $5.45 here. And last meeting, I was taking care of his sisters. I was in New York, the gas was $4.19, and up here it was like, still $5. So I can't figure that out. In New York City, it would be cheaper than up here. It's kind of odd. Just a question, and I don't know if I'm out of order. It's just something that's on my mind. On that idea of the apartments on Main Street, the property behind on the slope, that slope, who would own that? Who would be responsible for that?
That was purchased by Hugh Reynolds, who owns Greenhead Lobster. He bought that one, the one in front of it, two down from it, the one down from that. He bought 4 or 5 properties and is fixing them all up.
But if you're referring to the slope itself, Joe, that parcel contains the slope.
That's how this one, so the person who would be developing that apartment complex would be responsible for taking care of that slope too in case of water damage coming down, or whatever. It wouldn't be the town's responsibility, it would be his.
It would be all on his, I mean, that property goes almost up to the buildings you bought.
Yeah, it does. Sorry, I misunderstood the question. Yeah,
Yeah.
so the slope is part of our property as it lies right now. It goes up, and then there's a property in the middle, so it prevents it from being a perfect rectangle. So we go all the way up to the former sea captain's house, up
Yeah,
to
and-
Mill Street, and then on the other side.
The two apartment rentals in
Yes.
the other building, which was mine once, but, okay, no, I just wondered, because if that does go through and it blah, blah, and then let's say if there was a heavy storm and damage to that, it wouldn't be the town's responsibility, it would be his.
They know that in the plans, because this isn't the first plan that's come to the town council, or to the town. Most of them are trying to avoid retaining wall, because that would be a lot of money, but they're talking about retention ponds and whatnot to slow and curb the water. They realize that they'd be responsible.
Responsible for that,
That's
especially with
their-
that house right on the cliff there. yeah.
Yes.
No, just on my mind, that's all.
Okay. Go ahead, Larry.
Status on the old bank and Huckleberries. Do we have anything?
The former Huckleberries?
Yep.
So the former Huckleberries, that's going to be known as Crumpet.
Crumpets Cafe.
Yes, they have not gone to the planning board yet for change of use, so they've got that work to do before they can open. I'm not sure what else is left inside. I know Luke's been with them. And the status of the old bank is they haven't come in to meet with the town yet.
Right, that's,
They, have to-
I spoke with Tim a few weeks ago Well, I had invited him to join the merchants group downtown and fill him in on our plans for the rest of the year for events. And at that time, he said that his plans to open in May had been pushed out to December because of contractors. You know, getting them in time. And he said that was the soonest that he would be looking at opening. So he would be looking at events with us for next year, not
That's the
this year.
restaurant where Huckleberry's was?
No. That's for the old bank
The old-
building,
okay.
Tim Rich from Bar Harbor. Yeah. So he said he would be much later opening than he had originally anticipated due to contractors.
And they too would also have to go to the planning board, so if they're probably January,
Yeah.
if they don't know that they have to go to the planning board. It's a change of use from retail to restaurant, so that's why they would need to go to the planning board, both of them.
Any other new business?
I was going to say that to your last comment at the last meeting about heating oil and stuff in the
Yes.
winter, I saw that the city of Bangor is doing $2,000 weatherization grants
Yes.
to the city. I can do some further, I just saw it today online, so I can do some research on that if this committee wants me to look into that, or,
Well, don't most counties have that program in place?
well, they have what
Yeah.
was formerly, Hancock County has what was formerly known as LIHEAP. It's
Mhm.
now just HEAP, from what I understand, but still the same parameters, income level based. So, yeah, it's countywide, they do have something, but the city of Bangor is doing something on their own. Like I said, I caught a quick snapshot of it, up to $2,000 for weatherization and heat pumps.
Well, again, I'm only concerned about the town having the funds set aside for when people come to the town asking for help. That was my only concern there, and of course, that's the council and stuff that has to react to that. So let's hope that oil prices come down more.
It wouldn't be the worst thing to see what that program is, though, right?
I researched it.
Yeah. That's why you
I have,
It's not based solely on your income. It's based on the amount of square footage that you're trying to heat, more so than on your income,
Okay.
just so you know.
Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you.
could Ron or Meg comment on Museum in the Streets?
Yeah, so that program, sort of fell through a lot of cracks, and COVID sort of largest thing amongst them, but it is, I'd have to say it's back on track. It's being overseen by a board member now, David Doan. He's been in contact with the fellow that sort of we weren't in contact with for a while. I think John Paul came and spoke with Sue about, belatedly, we probably should have done that in the beginning, we got some other quotes, 2 other quotes, and Kim Delbridge came in significantly under what the official museum in the streets, but Sue felt that because that's the way it was approved, that's the way it should go forward, so there was no problem with that. I think the only hold up really now is the final images, the content, I think is pretty well approved. Main Street had some, faults along the way too, for sure. But I feel pretty secure with it in the hands of David. He's been in a lot of contact lately. And I'm not exactly sure, but I think a contract, if it hasn't gone out, we're making some final changes, has gone out, and the production should start shortly. We found out that the posts themselves are not included. The price, I think we're going to have to raise a little bit more funding to complete.
Oh, sell more cookbooks then.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so, but I think it's back on track.
Mhm.
You know, it's something we maybe should have done earlier. I'm not, you know, I guess I won't comment on that. It's gonna be the actual museum in the streets like you see in other communities. And the man did put his focus more in Europe for a while, so. But he's still active. So we should be able to give a regular update now, Larry, I think.
Okay. Thank you,
Looking
sir.
good, looking much better.
I guess I have a question. Just think about the art festival's coming up this weekend or something.
It is.
Have we done anything to help? They're a 501c3, aren't they?
No.
No, not Lighthouse.
Lighthouse is now a for-profit?
Lighthouse was always a for-profit.
Well, I thought it was a...
No, it was a nonprofit
They
for,
applied for a nonprofit. They started off first
Right.
as a for-profit organization.
Yes.
Applied for a nonprofit, then COVID happened. I don't know what happened at that point. It did go
Well, then
nonprofit.
you've answered the
But
question.
Main Street Bucksport is still the sponsor, and as long as they're a sponsor, fiscal agent,
There you go.
then it would qualify.
Okay. And have we helped them in getting out the word and everything the best we can? I'm just asking. I mean, it's late. I'm just wanting to know.
We've shared on Facebook as the town in this department, but no one's reached out, asked for any further assistance. I gave Mary some guidance of possibly getting banners usually help,
Yeah.
doing stuff like that, but
Well,
we left it at that.
we did get funding from the Seaboard,
Mhm.
and there is a ADI television campaign. I think before it was done by LBZ, but this time it's that. There's also, we gave some foundational support, underwriting, I guess you'd call it, to WERU. They've been promoting it pretty heavily. And then we're doing some paid Facebook advertising, which is out there now.
How's it looking?
I think it's gonna be pretty good. You know, if the weather stays the way it's been, I know they've got quite a few people that are coming.
Oh, good.
And I know I've lost my worker at the farms because he's feverishly doing his blacksmithing pieces to be over there, so. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I mean, it sort of got knocked back by COVID like everything else, and then of course, Catherine down there had Sadie, which the idea in Main Street was to try to, because we had a part-time ED, and for them to get so tied up in events, it was to get a co-event person so that they could handle much of it and we'd still be there. And that was on a good track sort of before COVID happened. And then it's like everything else. You try to resurrect things and get them going.
We're talking about the arch.
The art festival.
The only real large sign, visible sign, is on Grindle. There's a sign by the across from the Seaboard Credit. It's black. It's about this big, and the letters are this big. There's no way if you're driving a car that you can even read that.
Yeah, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there is a banner now that's about to go up, but
That's good.
it's, again, it was, I think Catherine felt she got left sort of alone, and this was the first time she didn't have a paid person to help, so.
Dumb idea, but I guess the Seaboard Credit Union wouldn't be able to help by, after banking hours, putting it on their flash sign up there.
Well, I think they gave financial support. They've really done, there's been stuff out there, but of course, television in the summer, not that many people are watching. So. And radio is tough nowadays, too. So. We'll see, how the attendance is.
Okay.
If that's it for no business, item 6 is proposed schedule, next meeting, Monday, September 12th.
To get it back on its regular schedule.
September 12th? Not the 5th.
That should be a Monday, right?
Yeah. No, that's great, because I'll actually be here.
We typically meet the second Monday of the month, but where my folks were up from Rhode Island, I had asked the board the previous month if we could push it out a week.
September 12th.
Item 7.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
We're adjourned.